Hi, I'm Maureen O'Brien. And this is the Sirens of Audio.
G'day audiophiles, this is the Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who in the audio medium. I'm Dwayne.
And I'm Philip. G'day audiophiles, g'day Dwayne.
G'day Philip. How are you? How you feeling?
I'm a bit exhausted and tired, but I'm still on a bit of a high.
I don't blame you one little bit. I thought we could take the opportunity for this episode, make it a little bit of a shorter episode. We've got some other things going on in our worlds at the moment. So this will be a bit of a shorter one, but I wanted to do a little recap on the Janet Fielding events that have been taking place over this month. And since you are the man who has spearheaded these events, I mean, we've brought these to you in the name of the Sirens of Audio, but it has been you, Philip, that has been the man behind these. So thank you for all the work that you've put into it.
Oh, no, that's okay. And, there's lots of people who've helped along the way too. So I'm very thankful for you a lot, Dwayne, mainly, but then other people as well in other cities have helped out too.
Well, I did start the podcast, so that had something to do with it.
Oh, exactly. I stole your name.
Okay, so give us a little rundown. We started off with the Sydney event. Do you want to start with that one, or was there something? Yeah. How did you feel running up to that? With did you have any? Was there any level of nervousness there?
There was a level of what the heck am I doing and why am I doing this? So the week leading up to the whole thing. Just to go back a step further. I mean, just in terms of how it actually began was that Janet actually contacted me to say she was coming out to Australia. And she said she really wants to go to Hobart and Perth because she's never been there.
Yeah.
And she said, can I help her get to Hobart and Perth? I said, well, I guess so. And then as we talked some more, she was talking about the fact that, well, she should do her home city of Brisbane because she hasn't done anything there for years and years. And I said, well, sorry, if we're doing this, then you need to do my home city of Sydney as well. And I said, I knew the Melbourne people wouldn't be happy.
So she didn't want to do Sydney at first?
Well, Sydney wasn't on her list. So no, I said that the two places she's never been to was Hobart and Perth.
Yep.
And I was trying to set those two things up, but unfortunately there's a couple of clashes with Perth this time. Though I'm hopeful that maybe next time she comes out, we'll look at Perth and Melbourne as hopeful locations for those two. Absolutely. But I sort of said, no, if I'm setting up things for Brisbane and Hobart, we've got to set up Sydney as well. So I did force Sydney on her, kind of. So that's how it sort of started, just because she had a desire to, and she just wanted something smaller, fan-led, lots of close contact. And so I think that was the hallmark of all three of the events. All three events were very different. I think that's came to the fact of I ran the event in Sydney, but our friend Craig Wellington, I seconded him in Hobart, and he had a particular flair and style that he wanted to do in Hobart, and then Natalie in Queensland with her Raving On podcast. She also had her own particular flair too. So we'll discuss those slight differences along the way. In terms of Sydney, the aim was just to get the fans into a room together, get her talking lots. And so I think I worked out Janet was probably on stage for about 4.5 hours in Sydney. So wow. She did a full-length interview to start off with. She then did photographs, which looked amazing. Then I forget, was it Q&A next? We had a Q&A as well. But the thing that she really enjoyed the most was she ran a quiz. And so we'd prepared a quiz on Kahoot. So everyone could get out their phones and compete against each other. But she got to be master of ceremonies. So she got to ask the questions. And then that just let her talk about different stories and different events. And she actually enjoyed that the most. So all the things she did in Sydney, she talked about being able to do the quiz was her high point. And that was a lot of fun. I think everyone enjoyed it. We had a big finished script signed. by her, which was the prize. But that was a lot of fun. What did you think of Sydney?
Well, I enjoyed it. It was the opportunity we had a day or two beforehand to meet in person for the first time after starting the podcast. We'd crossed paths, as has been mentioned before, very briefly in the past. But this was the first time we were actually doing something together as two people who knew each other quite well, even though it was over Zoom. So I was excited to be meeting you as well as Janet. So
it was interesting, Dwayne,
that
because
was a lot of fun.
It's interesting to say that because it was the first time we really have met in person deliberately. I know we've crossed
physically.
Physically, we've been in the same room in the past. But we didn't actually know each other then. It was just in the same space. But this is the first time, I count you as a good friend. But it was just bizarre. You were there, and it was sort of, but you're there. It was just so normal. It's weird how Zoom has.
It was kind of the same.
It was kind of the same. It's weird how Zoom has just taken on this. Because we talk deeply about stuff, and we know each other's lives, and our families a bit. And as much as it was great seeing people the first night, we got home and meeting your wife and kids, but it's weird because I kind of felt like I knew them. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
Yeah. No, that's okay. So it was interesting because you had so much on your mind that day, and you anticipated that you were going to be up all night that night, and we were able to smash out a few of the jobs for the next day reasonably quickly. So I was quite happy that we were able to do that together as a team. So not only do we do a podcast, I think, quite well as a team, we were able to organise this event quite well too.
Yeah, it was
at short notice.
Yeah,
for me, I turned up and I was thrown straight in.
It was. I mean, I just think we just worked so well together in the space. So in terms of, we had all this organisational stuff to do, the structural stuff to do, which I was expecting to do all by myself, but the two of us just clicked and we took on little roles, and as you said, we smashed through it. What I thought was going to take 5 or 6 hours, we smashed through in about an hour and a half together. So yeah, I was glad you were there, Dwayne. Boy.
Yep.
So that was Sydney.
And so,
yep. Oh, do you want to add? We did actually get. We got to enjoy Janet's company a bit as well, but it was just bizarre how some things didn't go as planned as well as we'd have liked. The VIP dinner, the food was fantastic, but the service was so bad it was laughable. Yes,
and we did. We had a lot of laughs about it.
We had a lot of laughs
during and after.
During and after, because of how the service was. But I think everyone had a great time, and I think being able to just go out with a guest, and Janet spent an hour or more on small tables with people, each table. And they just got to ask her questions and just chat, and she got to ask them questions. That evening, the VIP dinner is fantastic. And for those of you coming to Sophie, or if you haven't booked for Sophie yet, strongly recommend thinking about coming for the dinner, because if you really want to get to meet the guest in a very relaxed, casual atmosphere, the dinner's a great place to go. And there's still some seats available for the VIP dinner. Really worth doing.
Yes. Yep.
And what are your other reflections about Sydney? What else did you enjoy about Sydney?
Well, I was very nervous, but I felt quite relaxed very quickly after the day, because I was emceeing that day, which I didn't have to worry about with Hobart. I wasn't able to get to Brisbane, but at Hobart I obviously wasn't emceeing so much. But yeah, I always have my nerves on, and you're there going, it'll be okay, it'll be fine. But we're quite different styles when it comes to sort of show nerves, shall we say? And I was pacing a lot. I was always wanting to make sure things were going well, but I think everything went smoothly and naturally, and I was excited to see the different range of fans. We had some old school fans, but not that many. There was lots of new fans from the new series as well who were experiencing this kind of event for the first time, and they were approaching both of us and really expressing their gratitude for putting on this type of event. People were travelling from other cities. There were people coming from Melbourne, as far as I think there was even people as far as Adelaide as well that were coming up. So it was great to be able to get that feedback from fans, and most of the fans I didn't know. There was a couple that I'd known for decades and decades, but a lot of them were new. It was exciting.
I enjoyed meeting people. There's people that I've traded Target hardback books with who were there, and so it's just people whose names I knew because of being on the same Facebook groups together and chatting on Facebook groups to meet them in person. It is that one-to-one contact you have with fans, which just is all the joy, I think. And there was a number of people that I was just so glad to get to meet, and it was marvelous to just spend time with the fans of the area.
Very good. Then you had a 2-week break, and
I was just going to say the other disasters in terms of, we took Janet to the Blue Mountains on the Sunday, and you couldn't have had a worse day to go to the Blue Mountains in. It poured. It was misty. You couldn't see the Three Sisters. There was just thick mist. You couldn't even see the lookout. Everything that could have gone wrong on that day. It was lovely day, and visited chocolate shops in Lura, and we still had a good time. But in terms of all the sites and all the things that I'd had planned for the Blue Mountains, utter disaster. and just one other thing, just in terms of just how things went, I'd booked tickets to the theatre. So I was taking, Brom and I, my wife and I were taking Janet to see a David Williamson play at the Ensemble Theatre. And 5 minutes of the play, the lead actor broke his ankle. And haven't you heard this?
No.
Yes. So anyhow, we'd gone to the Ensemble early. We'd had a beautiful dinner, fortunately. So we got there very early. We had 2 hours over dinner, drinking some wine, went up to the theatre, show starts, and there's this awkward trip. And Bronwyn says to me, he's just broken his ankle, because my wife's a physio. And I thought, oh, surely not. And we went through the first act, and he had a bit of a limp going, but it was still an amazing performance, amazing first act. Intermission comes, we sit there through intermission, the music's playing, and then all the lights come up at the end of intermission. The director walks down and says, sorry, the lead actor's gone to hospital, he's broken his ankle. And so we didn't get to see
the understudy came in?
There was no understudy there. So, that was
cancelled the rest of the show.
Cancelled the rest of the show. So I actually went again last night with my son and his girlfriend to see the whole play again, because they replaced the tickets for us. But Janet never got to see the end of the show. So, as I said, everything to do with Janet, disaster. But there you go. It must be her nature. So 2 weeks later, we're in Hobart.
Enjoy it nonetheless.
Yeah, and in fact, we're in Hobart. You pick us up from the airport, because Janet and I arrived basically the same time. And what did we do? And what happened with the weather?
Oh, it cleared up.
Oh,
it cleared up. And from the airport, I could see that the top of Mount Wellington was clear, and I said, look, if we want to see the view from the top of Mount Wellington, we need to go right now. So I took you back to the hotel, you dropped your stuff, and then we took straight off to the hotel, to the mountain. As we got to the mountain, the clouds started rolling in, and it was mist, white mist. We got out at the top, and we got down to the viewing window, and there was a picture that Janet took of me at the Three Sisters with white in the background. And she said, I've got to get this again. So I stood there, and she took a picture of me at the top of Mount Wellington, white in the background. So that was our wonderful scenic tour of Australia that we.
Well done, Australia. You really brought the weather on really well.
Fortunately, we drove down the mountain a couple of 100 metres, and the clouds. The clouds were only above that, so we were able to get some views there. But that was Mount Wellington. Okay, so apart from that, your impressions of Tasmania? You hadn't been for a while, had you?
It's been 35 years since I've been to Tasmania, so it was lovely. Yes, we went to Port Arthur and went to Mona, and a few other places. So the things I got to see in Hobart was lovely, but the highlight again was still the event. So what an amazing...
Because we had a special host for this one in Hobart, didn't we?
We did. And in fact, it was very interesting when we had to... Because we'd gone to Port Arthur on the Friday,
yep.
But we needed to get back because the media were coming in. So there was cameras coming to Channel 7 News, the local newspaper, and Rove was going to be there because Rove McManus came to host Hobart. And so we came back with Janet, and she got changed, and there we were suddenly with Rove and Janet and all the media.
Yeah, it was a big hubbub going on there, and it all seemed to happen very quickly, and it was on the news that night. And page 3, Janet was finally a page 3 girl.
Yes.
In the newspaper on Saturday. So that was fantastic. And a very different show, because the different events, the autograph signing, the main interview that Rove did, they were in separate venues, only about a block away from each other. But yeah, so that was how that worked, and then the VIP dinner later on that night. So, but I think everyone there in Tassie, because anytime you want to see anything and you live in Tasmania, anything that's big, you've got to go to the mainland and see it either in Melbourne or come to Sydney. And so a lot of the fans were very, very grateful that we organised it in Tasmania. So thanks to Craig Wellington as well. He was the man behind that. And the reason we got Craig involved was originally when Janet had told you she wanted to come out, the time that she was coming out was a time that I was originally planned to be away. But my trip fell through. I was going to be on the road for 6 months. That trip fell through and I was there. So I'm glad I was there, but it was also nice to be able to sort of sit back and relax a little bit for that event. Even though we were helping, I didn't feel like I was ultimately responsible like we were in Sydney so much.
Yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, you're right. Craig just did an amazing job. It was so much fun. And once again, just spending time with the fans, the appreciation of what we did. The theatre staff all talked about the fact of what an amazing show it was. They all enjoyed sitting at the back and watching. I mean, Rove was so entertaining and just knew so much stuff. And yeah, he and Janet had a marvellous time for that hour and a half or so. It was a lot of fun watching them spar with each other and just getting more stories out.
Very good. So, unfortunately, I couldn't make it to Brisbane, but you got to all three shows, of course. Tell me about Brisbane. I want to hear all about it. I haven't had a chance to talk to you since then.
Yeah, well, Brisbane, once again, meticulously organised by Natalie, part of Act to React. As I said, she's got a few podcasts. Look her up because she's a very amazing, talented actress, as well as director and playwright and producer. So she'd organised things just meticulously. So the first big event was, we actually had the VIP dinner this was a Sunday event, and the dinner was on the Saturday night. And so there was this pub, and the ground floor cellar of the pub, which used to be a hidden bar when the police were looking out for people, long story, that had organised the people called, Bill Tardis?
Hire a TARDIS?
Hire a TARDIS. So there's a group in Queensland, Brisbane, called Hire a TARDIS, who make props. They make Daleks and Cybermen, and they hire and so the room was decked out. It had a perfect life-size scale Jodie mannequin. And by the way, if you want to see photos, go to our private Science of Audio webpage. Everything's behind there in an album, so go and have a look at the photos. They had a perfect Jodie there. They had a half-destroyed Cyberman who spoke all through the night and called out phrases. It's like having Nick Briggs there. What else was there? So but all these displays set up around the room. So you just walked in, and it was just stunning. All the tablecloths with TARDIS blues. Beautiful meal. So just a spectacular meal there. And also, as well as Jason Haig-Ellery from Big Finish.
Yes, I was a bit sad I couldn't meet Jason, but next time.
Had a ball with Jason. He was still suffering a bit of jet lag, but he was, yeah. I'd like to say he was a font of knowledge, but he kept everything to his chest. He's a very
mongrel.
He's a very secret man, and Anyhow, there's some stuff I got out of him, but so little because he's so good at keeping secrets. But anyhow,
he'd have to answer to Steve Berry if he let anything go.
He would. But anyhow, he still had so much to talk about. Anyhow, with stuff he could talk about.
Yep.
And then Spencer Howson, who's a Brisbane very large renowned radio name, was also a guest who was there. And so the dinner was just a lot of fun. The next day, the event was held at a small theatre that Nat had hired out, and it was just particularly organised. There was a lovely foyer area. Once again, Bessie was parked out front. They had Earthshock Cybermen, Modern Cybermen. They had Resurrection Daleks. They had New Series Dalek. There was just displays everywhere. The fans came dressed up. People were able to get autographs and photos. The photos look spectacular with Janet there as well. And then Spencer did an hour or so interview. There was a question. Jason Haig came out got interviewed at length, and we'll actually release that interview soon for you guys to actually watch. We then had a question time. It was just another amazing day. Everyone just raving about how much fun they had. So 3 great fans. And it was interesting actually in Brisbane because lots of the people there, about half the people there, had been at the event the week before with Sophie at the Comic Con.
Oh, of course, she was at the Gold Coast.
She was at the Gold Coast, so a number of people had gone down to the Gold Coast, but everyone said how much more they preferred the fan event. That
Right.
because they'd got an autograph from Sophie, but Sophie was only on stage. She was there for the whole weekend. She was only on stage for half an hour for one of those 2 days. So most
Oh,
people
wow.
hadn't seen her on stage at all. And she's
Right.
not interviewed. It's just people can just ask questions, and often the questions are pretty random and not well prepared that she gets asked.
Yes.
And so people said they got an autograph and that was it. And so
Oh, wow.
in terms of what they managed to get with Janet was just this whole day, and there was all sorts of fun things and activities happening. Yeah, it was brilliant. A really wonderful day.
Well, hopefully some of those Brisbane people will be able to come down and see Sophie properly in Sydney
I hope
in a
so.
few weeks' time.
Yeah. So 2
Actually,
weeks.
2 weeks' time.
2 weeks' time. So yeah, if anyone who's around in Australia, or particularly Sydney, but anywhere, it's still 2 weeks. We'd love to get you along. And Jason Hageley was twisting my arm about the fact that this is the sort of thing that needs to start happening more. And he wants me to, he's saying, you need to do this more. And I'm just saying, I'm just not sure, we've got enough crowds, enough people coming out. And he's sort of saying, well, you've got to expect to, make a loss or maybe not even break even for the first few. It's all about consistency. And he's prepared to keep helping us with guests, even though we have lots of guests lined up who say they want to come. We just need to get people there. So people to come along and support the guests who are here and tell us who they want next. I'm happy to keep working on getting more out here.
Excellent. We'll do our very best. But can I just say a huge, huge thank you to Janet Fielding for being so wonderful throughout this whole time. She didn't have to do this. She was out here for personal reasons. So to take time out to do this for the fans, I think was wonderful. And she was just such a lovely person to be spending some time with. And I'm just really grateful to her.
Yeah, she's a really, really lovely person. And really glad to spend that time with her. And the time with the fans was just wonderful.
Awesome. So that's our debrief on the events that we had with Janet Fielding this month. As we said, Sophie Aldred will be appearing in Sydney in 2 weeks' time, or even less than 2 weeks' time by the time you hear this. And you can get more information on that at sirensofaudio.com. That's where you can get your tickets for the event. So make sure you come along to that, have a chat with us and have a chat with Sophie. We have 2 more guests that are coming along to that event too. Do you want to tell us about those, Philip?
Yep. So recently we actually had Kate Allman on the program because she had a new release from Big Finish. Kate Allman and her partner, John Blum, both new adventure writers, and it's new adventures and what's the other series?
And Big Finish.
And Big Finish, yes, of course, I was going to get to that. But yeah, so for the people who are really into the books, they're going to be there and being interviewed. And yeah, hopefully they might do some signing. If you've got things written by either of them, either on Big Finish CDs or from the books, bring them along to get signed. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing some of their story and some of the things that they've been up to and what they're currently working on.
Not only that, but we have David Kitchen from the Doctor Who show coming up from Melbourne, and he's going to be doing the interview with Kate and John. So it'll be good to, if you're a listener of the Doctor Who show as well, you'll be able to have the chance to have a bit of a chat with Dave.
Yeah, and David is a huge New Adventure fan. He loved the books. I must admit, I was kind of out of fandom at that time when the books were coming out, so I've only read the odd assortment here or there. But David knows the books backwards, which is why when I heard he was coming, I said, I've got a job for you, David. You've got to do the interviews.
Excellent. No, I'm looking forward to meeting him too. He was a guest on the podcast recently doing a randomoids for us, and it will be nice to catch up with him. So as far as Big Finish goes, there is a bit of a crossover with Kate and John. So Kate obviously wrote Walking to Babylon, which has been adapted by Big Finish, one of their very early Benny Summerfields. And John wrote The Fearmonger. I think it's number 5 in the Big Finish monthly range. And Kate Allman recently did an audio novel called The Dead Star, read by Michael Troughton. And I reckon, just quietly, Jason Hagellery hasn't told me, but I reckon Kate might be doing some more down the track for Big Finish. I just have a feeling.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
All right, that'll do us for this episode. Thank you very much for listening and for all your support. both for the podcast and for our events. We are very excited to be bringing all of these things to you. Philip, it's been a pleasure.
As always, Dwayne, you too.
Thank you. We'll catch you next time.
Bye, everyone.